The General Industries Workers Union of South Africa, GIWUSA, has condemned the 30% export tariffs imposed on South Africa by the U.S. administration and the sweeping executive order targeting dozens of nations. It says the move is aimed at punishing South Africa for its affirmative action policies and, amongst others, its International Court of Justice prosecution of Israel's actions in Gaza. The body adds that the move is further aimed at some sovereign economies whose systems are resisting U.S. domination. In a statement today, the organization called for a fighting strategy in response to these tariffs, which it says should include the nationalisation of affected industries. Mametlwe Sebei is the president of GIWUSA and he joins us live. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. Perhaps let's talk about your position as opposed to, just looking at these 30% export tariffs imposed on South Africa.
Thank you, Mbo. We're very clear. I mean, we obviously condemn in a strong as possible way this 30% tariff increase. And I think what it represents is a policy of an imperialist aggression and terror with a view, obviously, to subduing South Africa and quite a number of countries for various reasons. And obviously, there are domestic considerations from the point of view of a Trump administration. One of it is that they want to offset the widening budget deficit that will be exacerbated by $5 trillion US cuts on taxes on corporations and the wealthiest people in America. On the other hand, they are trying a strategy of trying to bring on encouraging all the American companies to come home. At the same time, for foreign policy purposes, the view is to punish those countries that are aligned with them. One, in case of South Africa, with regard to the policy towards Israel, but also participation of South Africa in BRICS, which try to create an alternative, bloc to U.S. hegemony and Western imperialism. So we are opposed unreservedly to this act of imperialist aggression, but at the same time, we also say that the reaction of South African government could not have demonstrated any better the impotence and the incapacity of the GNU to addressing the deepening economic crisis facing South Africa and the working class in this country.
What do you think South Africa's government, in terms of immediate steps, what do you think those immediate steps should be? I mean, on Friday, we heard President Cyril Ramaphosa speaking at the union buildings about how they're going to do as much as they can, negotiate as hard as possible to ensure that, there is a solution and a way around this with Washington. What are your thoughts?
I mean, it is a hopeless strategy. They are obviously, trying all they can. I mean, including telling us that all the groveling that we've seen, in a shameful spectacle, that was their visit to White House, was going to bear fruits. For all the humiliations and the time to talk it. I mean, all of that is just really whistling in darkness to lift out their spirit. The reality is that they have no solution. Listen to what the Minister of Trade and Industry, Paktau, actually proposed. When you strip, the measures that he put in place of all the pretensions, they come down to a launching of a toll-free line for distressed businesses, really. And for that matter, we tested that line. Twice it was not even picked up to show that it's just a gimmick. What we need to do is to take decisive measures. What this country needs to do is to bring under public ownership lots of this industry, the auto manufacturing, the processing of minerals in the smelters, the big agricultural monopolies. Why? When you look at the auto manufacturing, which alongside smelting, of course, are making over 80% of the AGOA benefits in terms of duty-free access to American markets, right? That auto manufacturing is already a major beneficiary of subsidies from this government in a form of, subsidies that some estimate. I think I've seen the report from World Bank that says for every job the government is subsidizing the industry to the tune of 114,000 rand, right? The smelting business is also the same. They are getting, in the case of, I think, South Point, and I think before that, BHP Billiton, up to 10% of South Africa's electricity from Eskom, in special tariffs. So we must bring those industries under public ownership. In the case of auto manufacturing, repurpose all of that to ensure that we must manufacture, right, vehicles for a mass public transport needs in this country. We can be manufacturing trains, trams, buses, electric vehicles for private and industrial use. We need that. There is capacity in this country, and there is a demand. At the present moment, even the current metro rails line that we have in the metropolitan areas of Gauteng, of Western Cape, are inadequately equipped. But more than that, people in Limpopo, Northwest, and Eastern Cape, and other remote areas don't even have access to railway transport, don't even access to buses and all of that. This is what needs to be manufactured to ensure that not only are we saving the current jobs, but there is an opportunity to create many new jobs, because what we have by way of the industry today is actually assembling and not manufacturing. From design to final production, there are many opportunities to create many new quality, decent paying jobs for ordinary people.
Of course, the central issue here is to ensure that jobs are saved. I mean, we heard the President talking about supporting small business and ensuring that jobs are not lost during this process. As you talk about the plan, what could possibly happen in the interim, what needs to happen?
I mean, anybody who trusts this government would be really childish, quite frankly, because look at the promises that they've made to workers at ArcelorMittal. Thousands of jobs have been lost over years. Every year with them reiterating commitment to help and help is all a cheap talk. And that is ultimately because this is a government that is committed not only to capitalism, that is a privatized and monopolized ownership of the economy by the multinational corporations, but it is also committed to neoliberal policies that actually means they are unwilling to intervene in the economy and completely reliant on so-called private sector investment and predominantly foreign direct investment. That is the plunder by the very same imperialist cooperation that has gotten us here. But that Washington consensus, as it's called, it has now been broken and laid shattered, not less because of the action of Washington itself. What then do we need? Obviously, this crisis creates massive challenges, but also opportunities to rethink the way that economy is working in this country and to build economy and industries that work for ordinary people. But for that, you need public ownership, you need democratic control and management of the working class, and we don't believe that the ANC and any of the parties in the GNU are going to deliver that. The working class must rely on its organization, unity, and struggle, first and foremost, to defend the jobs that are at stake here. We are saying that workers must take strike actions to defend the jobs and the benefits. We are saying that they must occupy workplaces that are threatening to be closing. And the entire labor movement must rally behind these workers in a campaign to make sure that we pressurize government to actively and decisively intervene in the interest of the millions of the working class people, the way that they've been intervening in the economy.
Thank you so much. We unfortunately have run out of time, but we do thank you for your time. Mametlwe Sebei, the president of GIWUSA, there weighing in on the 30% export tariffs imposed on South Africa by the US administration.